All right, guys, welcome back. Another video here. Some really nice longs off of the 100 SMA today on the S&P 500 futures, but it didn't come without a little bit of drama. Got in a little bit early today, had to sit through some drawdown. The amount that I made was about the amount that I was in drawdown. So when we end the day, overall, it was about a 1-to-1 type of day. You know, we're not always going to get those 2-to-1s, those 3-to-1s, those 4-to-1s. Of course, we love those. We love to take those. And the trade that I took on SPX was a 100% profit without much drawdown. So the SPX trade that we're going to talk about today, that was a very good risk reward. However, when you go ahead and look at my entire P&L for the day, the amount that I risked today, the amount of my drawdown was the same amount that I made. So I risked about $30,000 and I made about $30,000. I was in about $30,000 worth of drawdown to get to the point of where I was today at the end of all of my trades. Now, how did I get to that point? I got to this point through a little bit of an early entry, a little bit of a front run entry. Now, I was very comfortable the entire time during the position because I understood my idea, I understood my levels, and I knew that I wanted to wait for the last possible area to get out, which was the 100 SMA, 100 daily SMA on the S&P 500 futures, which was 54.40. Now, this was a level that we talked about in the live stream. This is a level I talked about on my Twitter, my X account, over the weekend and into yesterday. You guys saw me post about this 54.40. I said I didn't want to be short into this level, and I figured that this could be a great long spot. Now, of course, today, which is a common problem for me, and I'll openly admit that, I have these ideas, but there are moments that I front run the idea just slightly, right? So I get in a little bit maybe too early. I have to sit through some drawdown, which makes the statistics and the numbers not look as fancy, right? But for me, guys, I don't care about that, right? I know the risk I'm taking. I know where my risk is. I know where my levels are, and I know my game plan when it comes to me. Right? When I come on YouTube and I share my trades and I show my statistics, it gets a little bit skewed because, all right, yeah, he risked quite a bit to get to that. He should have been at a better entry, which, yes, I should have had, right? I should have had a little bit of a cleaner entry, should have been more patient to wait for that 54.40 level, no doubt. I should have waited for that to come down a little bit lower to get that entry point, to get that long on the SPX, the long on the Qs. That was the pristine entry. Now, there's going to be times where I enter a little bit before it, get a little bit excited to get into the play, and I have to sit through some drawdown. So that's pretty much the moral of the story today for me, but I end out on top. The analysis was correct, the level was correct, and it was an awesome long opportunity off that 54.40. What we're about to do in today's video is I'm about to jump on a Zoom call with my community, and we're going to break down every single aspect of this trade. We're going to look at the live trade. We're going to look at the levels. We're going to really dive deep into what I did today, and I'm going to go ahead and record it and have you guys along for the ride. So I hope you enjoy it, guys. I'm not going to do an outro to this video. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into the live recording of the Zoom session that we're about to do with the community. I hope you guys enjoy that. If you do, press the like button, subscribe. If you want to trade live with me every day, be a part of some of these recaps, make sure to check out the link down below. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I hope you enjoy this recap, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, guys, welcome. I'm going to record this so we can review this later on, and we can just use this as a really good learning opportunity today, guys. Pretty awesome day, but, had to sit through some drawdown. And today, guys, I'm going to be fully honest with you, right? I was in a drawdown that I was comfortable with, okay? But a drawdown that could have been smaller, right? Let's make it what it is, right? It could have been smaller. It could have been better. It could have been more precise. But I cannot stress how that is always going to be, a situation that we have to work on in our trading, okay? Again, I want to reiterate, because some people clearly still don't understand. I am human. I will at times take early entries that could be better, that could be improved upon, and this is why we show up every day and we come to this community. That is why we're here. The reason we're here is that we improve, we get better, we do better, we help each other, and we don't curse each other out and tell us that we're wrong, okay? That's not why we're here. We're here to help, we're here to improve, And if I'm sometimes slightly off, that is something that you're going to have to experience and hopefully learn from. So that is today, right? That's today. Ended up great. The day was fantastic. We ended up really correct about the market levels, which was 18,500, 18,550 on the NASDAQ futures. And we were absolutely spot on about the 5440 on the ES, right? And so you guys are looking at the screen right now, right? And you can see the 18,550 level once again stepping up. And this was, if you guys recall, the level that I was looking to long off of early morning today. So let's go ahead and just quickly go over, hey, what was Desi's idea this morning? And why did he make the money that he did, right? And we'll go over those live trades as well. So you guys can see this on your charts, right? You guys can see, I hope you can, right? Make sure you can. I believe you can. Make sure to let me know in the Discord if you can. But you guys can see, right? We were looking to long this level right here. This was where I first entered my QQQ puts today, or QQQ calls today. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up that live recording right here, guys. And we're going to go through this in a second, but I just want to let you know and show you really quick. If you go up to the top, look at the top left of the screen, right? Top left of the screen, this is the live recording from today, okay? Top left of the screen, you can see there is no QQQ option in my portfolio here, right? And so let me go ahead and fast forward it a little bit, right? And right there, okay? So right there is where I enter. And if you look down at this area over here, if you guys go ahead and look down in this area over here, this is the NASDAQ chart. And that is, you can see my entry on the QQQ options right here. My first entry right there at the 200 SMA, okay? So that was my first entry. My idea here was, let's look to long the 200, right, after this pullback that came in, and let's see if we can catch this move, right? Pretty much this move right here, which did end up happening. Now, where did the drama ensue, right? What went wrong for the time being? So what ended up happening was that 200 SMA, it did show something, right? And it was a valid level, but it did not hold, right, as much as I would have liked on the first attempt. It seems to be holding very nicely here, right? You can see that definitely a level that is, proving to be an important spot. But we can see this time in this first attempt, we did not hold, okay? Now, I want to make something very clear when I take these trades. I was watching this 200 SMA as definitely a guide in this trade, right? And definitely an idea to long off this level. Now, that is not the only thing I am watching, okay? I am watching the S&P 500 futures. I'm watching the SPY ETF. I'm watching the QQQ ETF, right? I'm watching all of these together to get an idea of what I think the market will generally do in a upcoming period. Not what it's going to do over the next 30 milliseconds to make sure I am never in drawdown, right? I'm getting an idea of what the market is attempting to do after the pullback that has already been established, right? And so what I saw coming in was, number one, that NASDAQ futures coming down into that 200 SMA, which got me interested, right? That's sort of like the trigger and the solenoid and trigger system, whatever I'm trying to say there. You know what I'm trying to say. It gets me interested, right? That gets me interested to potentially pull the trigger. And that first area was the 200 SMA on the NASDAQ futures, right? This was our zone, and this was that 200 SMA on the NASDAQ futures. Now, the other level that we were talking about during this exact same period, right? During this exact same period of entering that trade, the other level that I was talking about in the voice chat and with you guys was QQQ 450. And we have talked about this level for months. We've talked about the daily pivot level that has been very important on this QQQ and that we have held this morning, right? And we talked about this on DesiTA this morning. You guys can see right here on DesiTA, we said that 450 demand stepping up alongside the NASDAQ 200 SMA, right? Cautious shorting into the 450 demand here. Possibly a short-term relief. Look for the bounce into the 458 level today for possible retest rejections, okay? And so I had that 450 level very much on my charts. Now, I am not going to, guys, and this is where this is a very important topic that I want to talk to you guys about, okay? Let me go ahead and, because at the end of the day, guys, trading, you answer to yourself, okay? And if I'm wrong here, I am answering to myself, right? I'm answering to me being wrong. I'm not answering to anyone else. That's what I love about trading, right? I'm my own boss. I answer to myself. If I do something wrong and I start to slip up, I got no one to blame but me, okay? And so when I longed that NASDAQ futures at that 200 SMA and I started to get into some drawdown after it started to break down, right? I was not willing to exit that trade knowing that the QQQ was still above 450, okay? So I am not simply watching that NASDAQ futures and saying, oh, instantly out. I can't believe it. I'm right. 2-minute chart, instant out, right? I'm not looking at anything else, okay? I am monitoring many things, one of them being, obviously, the QQQ, right? So 450 was another thing that we talked about on that voice chat. And I said, I am not going to wait. I'm not going to exit this if we're above 450 on the Qs, right? And that did take a little bit of after entry analysis, okay? And that's not the best, and I'll be fully honest and be fully open with you. I would have had a better trade, and I should have improved, right? And where I should have improved in this trade was giving it more and giving it that 450 and giving it that 54.40. Now, we don't know this this is very easy to say in hindsight, okay? We could have said very easily, right? Think about this both ways. What could have been the situation? We could have ended up saying, man, I can't believe I didn't at least take some kind of a shot here at the 200 because, man, that QQQ or that NASDAQ futures ripped right off the 200 today, and I was waiting for QQQ to get back to 450. And, man, I wish I would have just at least taken a little bit of risk there before we got to 450, right, and then be willing to give it that space. Right? We could have easily said that today. That could have been the situation without a doubt. We could have said, okay, we didn't quite get the entry there. We were a little bit slow to it. We wanted to wait for the 450 to touch. It never got touched. That 200 SMA on the NASDAQ futures held us higher. And that results in the missed trade, and you don't end up taking that entry, right? So it goes both ways there. And that's sort of that margin of error that I am always willing to incorporate into my trading, right? I'm willing to incorporate that margin of error into my trading. And so for today, we had the NASDAQ futures. Oh, wow, it's lightning out bad. Oh, bam. Oh, shit. Damn. All right, it's getting nasty out. I was long right off that NASDAQ futures 200 SMA, which was very clear, but we had to go a little bit lower, it looks like, to that 18.5, which ended up lining up very nicely with that QQQ at the 450 level, which is a very clear level that we had. Now, on the ES, on top of that 450 level on the QQQ, there was another level that really kept me confident in the long idea after entering it, right, early morning. And so I'm going to show you here. That level was the 100 SMA on the ES. And that was a very, very clear level that we have talked about pretty much every day and even over the weekend. And I'm going to show you, right, this is that live stream look that we had. If we go to this, we go here, we go to that daily. If you guys remember that live stream look we had, number one, we talked about that 5,400, right, and that major demand that was holding up, right? We've talked about that. Down to the 15. And let's zoom in here. So 15 minute, we had those previous highs from Friday, right? And we had that hold in the pre-market, and we had that pullback long that created, right? So when I entered that NASDAQ, when I entered those longs on the Qs, I wanted to give it at least here at 54.40 in the 100 SMA, and I wanted to give it 450, right? And so I needed to, just to myself, right? I needed to give it those levels. I am not going to allow myself to exit a trade before that setup breaks down. I'm not going to let a P&L number, I'm not going to let emotion, I'm not going to let stress from the community, I'm not going to let people telling me I'm wrong exit a trade before my trade idea is invalidated, right? Nothing is going to take me out of that trade. If I am down too much, that is my own fault for entering too much size, okay? If I am in too much drawdown to where I am totally blowing up my account and I'm not comfortable, that is my fault for putting too much size in the portfolio, too much size in the trade. But I need to let the levels work themselves out. And here I needed to let the 450 level on the Qs work out, and I needed to let the 5440 on the ES work out. I had to let that set up. That was exactly from our game plan. If we go to the ES from this morning, we said that you could look for a possible scalp long off the 5440 and 100 daily moving average. This was verbatim the levels that we had. This was verbatim the game plan that we created, and this was a possible scalp off the 5440 and 100 daily moving average, and that was very important for me to see out, right? Because I created that game plan, and I'm not going to just panic out of that trade. The reason why it was sweatier than it needed to be, was because of my poor entry, which aligned with the NASDAQ 200 SMA. I could have done better in that situation, but what I am extremely happy about, and could not be happier about, is that I allowed this to play out, and I did not panic over the drawdown, and I allowed this level to show me what it wanted to do, right? I allowed the market to show me what the reaction was at that level, rather than entering and exiting and panicking over short-term downside, right? And so you can see today that 5440 really holding up, providing that scalp opportunity. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and pull up the live recording, and I'm going to just sort of walk us through this, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put this big screen. You guys can see this whole thing. You're going to hear my voice, and I hope you can hear that over the mic. I'm going to put my volume up, and I'm just going to let this play out a little bit, try to cut to some times that I think are most important. Let me go ahead and make sure this is visible. Let me go ahead and move my face on this. Okay. All right. So on the bottom right is the S&P 500 futures down here. On the bottom right again, right here, this is the NASDAQ futures, S&P 500 futures. This is going to be NVIDIA, Amazon, and Palantir, which were some of the trades that we were in, right? But really what I want you to focus on is these two down here. It's the NASDAQ and it's the S&P 500 futures. Because I understand my risk here. But I'm long off the 200 SMA here on this morning downside. Just a channel. Taking a long on the Qs here. Stop under 18,550. Okay, so right there you heard me talk about... Satan King, then I'm sorry, man. Right? You heard me talk about longing the 18,550 level on the NASDAQ futures. That was my start. Okay, and if we look over here on the ES, right, look at the bottom right here on the ES, we can see that we weren't quite down to that 5440 yet, meaning that I need to give it that space, right? I still need to give it this space. I need to. If I'm going to long the market this close to a 100 SMA and a major key level, I can't be in here and exiting here. I just can't do it. I'm not going to allow myself to lose on a trade because I'm that much worried about that much space. So yes, we were down near that 200 here, right? We can see that down here, but we needed to probably give it some space here. This was something that I started to realize after the fact. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I knew this right away, okay? But this is something that you can learn to incorporate and to analyze as you are in a trade. So I started to realize after entering that NASDAQ trade that I said, hey, we might need to give this 5440, and that may require us to sit through some drawdown, but we should not be exiting this trade if that is still above the 100 SMA, right? I'm very clear with what I'm looking at. Watching the NASDAQ 18,550, gonna long this QQQ level here. Very, very clear demand. Long off this. If you don't like it, don't take it. If you don't like it, don't take it. I mean, right there, very true. Guys, if you don't like my trades, do not take my trades, okay? This is so important. You have to understand why I'm taking trades, and I hope that this is just a learning example again. So at this point, I'm down $3,000. I'm down 1% of my account. I really do not care about this amount, right? This is literally, this is like someone losing $30, losing $300. For me, $3,000. This is 1% of my account. I am very relaxed at this point, and I am not concerned about my standing of this P&L. Okay, this is far from even looking at.
For maybe this level, this 200 SMA to give me something here. Stop loss would be back under that 200.
Okay, so right there we talked about my original stop loss being under the 200. Now, while we saw it coming down to the 200, we started to see that game being played, right? It was up, it was down, it moved under it, it went back above it, right? So I needed to see a real failure below it. I'm not going to just exit on a 2-minute candle that wicks right under the 200. It's not something that I'm going to do, not if I'm comfortable with my risk. If I'm comfortable with my risk and I'm not over leveraging my account, I'm not going to just exit a trade on a 1-minute candle that goes under a key level. I need to see it really prove to me that there is very aggressive selling coming into the market and that there is, in my eyes, no way that that level holds, right? I need to see the NASDAQ tanking, right, really weak under that 200, and within a margin of within a margin of error, take that size off. I'm not going to just instantly exit at a major key level like that if I'm still within a risk tolerance that I'm comfortable with, which we should always be in. Let's fast forward this a little bit. So right here, let's go ahead and talk about my drawdown at this point. So let's look at the top left, look at my drawdown on my individual positions. Okay, so NASDAQ, QQQ right here, still very much within what I was looking at, right? Very much within where I wanted to be. I'm sitting down about 7% on Palantir, not worried. QQQ, 14%, I'm not too worried about that. NVIDIA down around 11%. And Amazon starting to slip a little bit away from me over here on the top right? You can see still it's slipping a little bit away. I'm getting a little bit close to being worried about this one. But I was sort of saying, all right, this 200 SMA, this 173 level, let's not just panic and sell into that, please, right? And let's see if there is a nice hold there. And so that's what I was sort of thinking during that time.
Still just not.
Okay, so here's where the drawdown starts to get bad. Right here, guys. This is when it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable, okay? This is right here. So you can see I'm going to start going down about 20K, right, which is about 10% of my account. This is about what I made last week, right? I made about 30,000 last week. So let's put this in perspective, okay? And I know this is not something that I would always talk about, but let's do this and put it in perspective, right? Let's say you made $1,000 last week, okay, trading options. That means in this situation, it's about you being down $800, okay? So you're pretty much giving back some of your profits from the prior week. Now, is this a situation for me to like throw it all away and to absolutely run for the hills? No, not yet. It's still not that point, right? I'm still not at that point to run for the hills and totally throw away my analysis on this market. I'm still going to monitor. I'm not going to look at this P&L. Percentage points are still pretty comfortable for me. 20%, 15%, 30%, 20%. Still sort of chilling here. Not that worried. But yes, the drawdown is starting to get sort of large, and we are starting to see that NASDAQ future break that 550. But this is around that time that we started to pay close attention to that 5440. Let me see if I can find where we started to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about adding a little bit more risk on maybe an SPX play off this 5440.
So this is when I started to think about that 5440 here.
Watching that today.
So I did take a little bit of size there to start the 5440 because I'm starting to get interested in whether this is a long idea.
100 SMA level that held overnight.
So that's when we started to think about that QQQ 450. We started to think about that 5440 ES, and this was also when I was starting to spot this right here on NVIDIA, which was starting to give me some interest, right? I started to see NVIDIA really defending that 104, And on the SMH, we started to really get some holds on the SMH as well. I'm not going to be able to pull that up because I don't have it here. But I can actually, let me go here real quick. If I go to the SMH, we started to see those holds on the SMH as well, starting to push back higher. And so I was starting to get a little bit interested of whether we were starting to see that general demand down there start stepping up. This is the peak right here. Right here. Peak drawdown right there. 33. This was peak drawdown right at 54.40. Right at the NVIDIA lows and right at that 450 on the QQQ. So right here, I was down 46% on the Qs, I was down 30% on SPX, and I was down 12% on NVIDIA and 26% on Amazon. Full transparency, full drawdown, this is where I was. Okay? And I basically said to myself, you are about 2 points away from your stop loss at 54.40. If you take your loss here, you basically threw away everything you made last week. Do I hate that and does that hurt? Yes. Am I blowing up my account and can I make this back? Yes. So this was about the point where I said 54.40. It's here or never. And you guys heard me talk about that. I said if we break under this 54.40, that's going to be it. And I'm going to have to accept this loss. So right there, I added more to SPX. You can see right there, more adds to SPX as we start to find demand off that 54.40. The P&L quickly coming back as well. And I'll just let this play out now because this is when it gets pretty interesting. So basically, holding SPX longs off 54.40, holding NVIDIA longs off 104, holding Amazon longs around that 174. So if we keep going, it's basically just SPX starting to heat up. Market starts to reverse off 54.40, which is our major level. About to hit break even on the day quickly.
Up 50% on SPX calls. It's like pre-market lows. Like
all right, so right here, guys, where did I start taking? This was about where SPX hit about 100% here. You can see right here, SPX up 90%. I started to take it fully off because SPX has now hit my 54.67 level, right? ES has hit my 54.67, which was my supply. So I basically took it from here, right? From here to here. And I took that profit on that push, which ended up being about 100%. And I took that profit, you can see,
$27,000.
right here, taking that off, right? Taking that fully off. So yeah, I mean, that's about it, man. Am I happy with how I performed this? Am I happy with how much I was down? No, not really, guys, to be honest. Not really. Could I have done better? Yes. Let me go ahead and show you this, right? Could I have been more patient to wait for the actual 450 to come in, wait for that ES to come in? Absolutely, guys. And you know, I'd love to be more precise. I'd love to be more precise at times. I'd love to be able to get it perfect. Now, when I look at this and I think about the size, you know, I always try to remind myself, what would I do if it was just smaller size? Let's say it was down 300 to up 300, right? Would I trade differently if that was down 300 to up 300? Or down 3,000 to up 3,000? Would I have held? And the answer to that is every time 100% yes. If I was down 300 or down 3,000 in that situation, I would have held. There's no way, right? That number, the idea, and if you remove the money from it, the idea of holding until that 100 SMA right here, it was something I really wanted to see play out, right? I really wanted to see that play out. That 100 SMA and that 5440. And so if I was down 30,000, you know, it's a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. We got some messages I'll go over in a second. You know, it was more than I'm typically comfortable with, but at that time, I told myself, I cannot trade with my P&L here. Let me make sure I maintain this until this 5440 breaks down. And if I have to eat this and take it on the chest, which, you know, take it on the chin, and if I got to say, hey, I lost 30,000 today, then so be it. So that's the recap, guys. We took that right into 4 o'clock. The market's about to close in 30 seconds. Looks like the market ended up holding our 5440 level for the rest of the day. I do swing trade NVIDIA, and I am, holy crap, NVIDIA. So I am holding NVIDIA, and I am holding Amazon overnight, guys. NVIDIA, wow. And Amazon overnight. I will maintain those, and a little bit of Palantir. So, pretty awesome day. Hope you guys enjoyed the recap, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace. Perfect timing.